morning. I'm George Salamis, President and CEO of Integra Resources.
George, good to see you. And look, I know you're a busy boy, lots of funds wanting to talk to you, and a bit of traveling going on. I saw the press releases on the FAST-41 inclusion. I wasn't quite sure what it meant, so I called you. You've been kind enough to maybe help me share that with some of our followers on the platform. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some dumb questions. From a sort of practical standpoint, what is it? What's materially different because DeLamar's on this FAST-41 transparent project versus just being sort of well advanced but outside of the program?
Yeah, Matt. So I think the piece, the headline event here, it's a big week for us. Obviously, coming on the heels of the DeLamar feasibility study, which we put out before Christmas. But this event is really a milestone because for the first time in DeLamar's history as our project, the U.S. federal government has put our project on a clock, and it's a fast clock, far faster than certainly anybody expected. And it's a really big de-risking event for us. Obviously, permitting being the single biggest risk for new mines anywhere in the world, let alone the U.S. And so we just crossed a line most projects never really get to. We have a defined schedule, which we put out a few days ago in the form of a BLM schedule, which is 15 months start to finish. Now with this FAST-41 initiative, we've got public accountability built into the project, built into the permitting timeline, and a government endorsed timeline. And that should be great news for our shareholders, obviously.
So what is that? Because I read about obviously you've got this permitting council project advisor in there. How does that help with the kind of interagency coordination that you would normally go through by yourselves?
So our understanding of what just happened with respect to FAST-41, and by the way, there have been other projects. We're not the first to go down this path, but the FAST-41 I guess method or mechanism, what it is it's essentially there's somebody from what is called the permitting council who is appointed to our project and is basically shepherding the Bureau of Land Management and all the other regulatory offices that we deal with in terms of getting our permit, eventually the record of decision. And they're making sure that things move along. And as they move along, that from a transparency perspective, that movement is tracked on a schedule which any one of our shareholders can go and access at any time to see where we're at. That's pretty big in of itself. But I think the really big piece here is the accountability piece. On a quarterly basis, the person who has been assigned to our case has to report to Congress, directly to Congress, to give an update as to where our project is in the timeline, and if it hasn't advanced, why. And there's a really big accountability piece to that. Again, I think it should be music to the ears of our shareholders.
But what about are there any kind of agencies, like, despite the involvement of and despite being in the kind of FAST-41 group of companies, are there any of the agencies which are still going to be tricky? Because this isn't a shortcut, this isn't a bypass. You still got to do things the right way. It's just they will help you kind of, I guess, expedite matters.
Yeah. So in terms of what we have to do to get to that finish line, that 15-month federal review, which is fast by U.S. standards, obviously, but there are no corners cut in that process. The NEPA process, start to finish, is still basically the same. The compressed time, if you will, elements to this have to do with response times. In other words, there's a guarantee of a turnaround of a document to come back to Integra, for example. We've submitted this document. Or the BLM has submitted this document on our behalf. There's a built-in response mechanism that says we have to get back to the proponent, which is us, Integra, within this time frame, and that's what they do.
Okay, and so how should investors kind of interpret the kind of public timetable updates on the federal permitting dashboard? For people who go and look, what kind of signals would indicate a kind of emerging risk, for instance, or indeed get a sense of how quickly this thing will actually move in reality?
Yeah, so typically the public hearing process, which is what the kickoff to our NEPA schedule, which is due to commence in the spring of this year, that's really the the first litmus test in terms of stakeholder acceptance of what we put on the table, or what the BLM is going to put on the table for us. And the responses that we get back will sort of judge the level of acceptance, or perhaps some pushback, or the things that we might need to tweak in the guise of the plan that we're putting forward to make the project really acceptable by our stakeholders in the end of the day. And that's really, in my view, that's really the kind of the first big litmus test to public acceptance of our project.
I think that's interesting, actually. I didn't realize. So could that kind of force any kind of like major redesign, or are we talking about things just to kind of fit into the way that they would expect projects to be run?
Yeah, in the context of that process, that the kickoff of the NEPA process, which is the public consultation phase, what we have seen in the past in other projects is projects receiving feedback that forces the proponent, again, Integra, to go back to the drawing board and tweak things. Now, really, in the end of the day, it's up to the proponent and dealing with the BLM and its stakeholders to determine, what are the major league items that we need to tweak here versus the more minor things that we can tweak that are not sort of game changers, if you will. And that's a dialogue, that's a consultative process.
But this doesn't change your kind of engagement strategy or policies, where you still got to deal with kind of social license and acceptance and all of those kind of good things. Again, there's no shortcuts here, are there?
No, and in fact, I pride Integra on the fact that we've dealt extensively with our primary stakeholders in Idaho. And there's some very large groups out there, and we've been dialoguing with them for a very long time. If there's one lesson we learned from the Integra Gold process, which is engage early with your stakeholders and bring them to your side of the table, and be as transparent as possible as to your plan from a development and operating and remediation perspective. Make them part of that, include them in the decision-making process. So in a sense, that initial public consultation process, which kicks off NEPA formally, will not reveal anything to, or most things to our stakeholders that they wouldn't have already seen and sort of hand over heart said, yeah, we accept that.
Okay, you mentioned BLM earlier. Obviously, there's a kind of NEPA schedule, which we should probably discuss as well. And so obviously, and a lot of work has happened up until now. But in terms of kind of giving BLM confidence to kind of define their timeline, what work has been done that we need to be aware of, and what more work has got to be done?
So in parallel with the NEPA process, and as I mentioned, so the kickoff is the notice of intent to proceed, that then immediately is sort of gets us into that public consultation process. In parallel with that, there's a lot of permitting that needs to be done at the state level. And for that state level permitting, there are certain studies that need to be conducted. They're very advanced studies, they're complex studies. Some are complete in our case, some of them are underway right now. Air quality studies, water quality studies in detail, not high level, but a lot of detail. That have to happen in parallel with what we're doing with the federal regulatory offices, so as to ensure that everything comes together at the end as to the best of our ability. And that's a lot of work that's going on in the background while we are formally in NEPA.
And clearly, I guess with the balance sheet at the moment and the bank account, you can afford to do that. That's just a process. There's no that'll kind of slow you down for lack of cash. Again, how does that work? Is it kind of like you submit, there's one solution? Can they push back? Can they say, well, actually, we prefer it if you did it a slightly different way?
Yeah, for sure. Along this entire process, and in fact, with respect to the mine plan of operations, which kind of is the blueprint that we submitted that was signed off on by the Bureau of Land Management last year for us. There's always an element of what alternatives are out there to the plan that you're presenting. Show us what those are. Let's have a discussion with the BLM about those alternatives. Maybe it's, don't build your road this way, build it that way. Or don't configure your heap leach pad this way, maybe move it, slightly to the left or slightly to the right. I'm just kind of, throwing it out there in terms of what that process looks like. And that occurs at various points along the permitting process, and that will continue to occur over the next 15 months of permitting.
And obviously, the ultimate endpoint of this is kind of a record of decision, right? So, and when is that expected?
That's Q3 is the blessed BLM timeline. End of Q2, early Q3 is the aiming mark.
2026.
Of 2027.
2027, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, 2027. Okay, so there's a bit to do between now and then. You say it's complex and it's detailed, but it's not set out to kind of catch you out. It's there to help you get the best outcome.
That's correct. Yeah, and yes, there's a lot of work, but bear in mind that with respect to the work that's gone into the project thus far, that in the data that we presented to the regulatory authorities, the engineering risks have been addressed. Those were just addressed in the feasibility study. And that feasibility study, again, is an iterative process that, in discussion with the BLM and other regulatory authorities, hey, does this work for you? Or is there an alternative out there that would better suit you? And just, again, another example, PFS to FS with respect to DeLamar, the footprint of the proposed action on the mining operation shrunk by 25%. And that determination of where we shrink was done in consultation with the BLM already. And they're very happy about the fact that we're disturbing 25% less surface area. That's something that they focus on a lot. And again, this wasn't just of our making. This was in consultation with the BLM and other regulatory authorities. And this sort of iterative back and forth process will continue through this entire permitting process.
Obviously, you're going to come at it from the perspective of how do we do this efficiently, and they maybe want to come at it from slightly different set of parameters and variables. So that iterative negotiation or collaborative working, however you want to call it, you've got to try and ensure that it doesn't kind of affect your capital intensity or operating costs ultimately. Is that something that's kind of understood from their perspective, or do they take the view, well, that's not our problem, that's your problem? And how collaborative is it, I guess I'm going to say?
It's very collaborative, and my understanding, I've been through this process elsewhere in different parts of the world. So this is my first time in the U.S. doing this, but my understanding of the way this works is, from the proponent's perspective, it's a balance of what can we afford to do, what's best for the environment, what's best for the stakeholders versus what keeps this project economic, right? And that's the iterative element of what we're talking about here. It's a discussion with the BLM that is gleaning feedback from stakeholders ultimately. And that's what we've seen in other processes that have been run of a similar nature in this part of the world.
And I guess you're getting into the weeds a little bit in terms of the kind of like reclamation bondage and financial assurances, etc. Have you got a good sense of what that looks like? Sometimes that can be punitive. How do you feel about where you are?
Yeah, there's so many moving parts to that piece. It's not just the bonding element, Matt. It's the when does reclamation occur? To what extent does it occur at the end of the mine life versus reclaim as you mine? Which is obviously, it's a cost. It's a cost that producers bear, and that's fine. But it's the timing of that, when it occurs, how much of it occurs. Again, that's the discussion piece with stakeholders that occurs in this permitting that we're entering here now.
Okay, and it's all kind of delicate conversations that hasn't been agreed yet, so it's hard to talk about for sure. In terms of there's lots of, I guess, parallel permitting going on that you're dealing with. Is that done in alignment with the NEPA critical path that you're obviously trying to agree?
Yeah, it has to be, because the two tracks have to be in sync with each other. In other words, what the federal permitting authorities are obliging us to do from this is what you must do to ensure a safe project, have to be in sync with what the state requires of us as well, because at the state level there are also permits and what we call ancillary permits that need to be received, or else this project just doesn't get built. And there are air quality permits, there are water quality permits that need to be obtained, there are cyanidation permits that need to be obtained, all from the state level, and they're all very important. So yeah, everything needs to sync up is, I guess, the message I'm trying to say.
Right, and in terms of that syncing up, just so I kind of get it clear in my head. Obviously, as you're going through this process, this NEPA process, you'll be looking and thinking and doing trade-off studies around kind of capital allocation, risk, and will you be sort of informing us as things going on, or is like, hey, just wait till Q3 2027, and we'll let you know what's going on? So I'm just trying to think from an investor's perspective, when does that kind of risk decline, as it were?
Yeah, so obviously we will be giving updates from our perspective as proponent, as the owners of DeLamar moving through permitting. Also, in terms of from a transparency perspective, everything that occurs from a public consultation process and that feedback is actually a matter of public record, right? Ultimately, so. Investors can see that as well. They can go online. They can actually go online and see the actual where we're at in the schedule itself, which is great. Which is a tremendously beneficial element of FAST-41. But in the end of the day, sort of these clear timelines for us equate to better capital planning, right? And the reduced risk for us means lower cost of capital ultimately to finance and build this project. And this is, I mean, great news for us. Ultimately, that came out.
No, absolutely great news. And I just you get a little bit some reassurance that in terms of the environmental impact statement, this is about refining and finessing rather than expecting any kind of material modified mine plan here. Is that right?
That's the expectation, correct? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd appreciate you kind of clarifying. So it's like, so for trying to understand what these the TLAs, the three-letter acronyms, mean sometimes in this sport of mining that we're in. So appreciate making the time for us, George. Obviously, great year ahead of you. We spoke to you recently about your expectations for 2026. I guess you better get back to it.
Yes, indeed. Now knowing where the finish line is, Matt, it's I think it's closer than people really expected at the end of the day, which is great news for us.